Hey friends, I want to talk to you today about how to structure your group fertility yoga classes, especially when you're keeping in mind that during different stages of the cycle, we practice different yoga poses, which is great when you're working one-on-one or if you're working in an online space like I am and people are able to choose the practice that is right for them. But what about when you have a group class and you have 10 people in the room, all at different stages of their cycle, but maybe also fertility treatments? How the heck do you manage that? So let's talk about that today. So before we get into the video, I do want to just let you know that I do have a fertility yoga teacher training, and this runs year round. So how it works is it's a 6-week course. You can sign up whenever you like and you can work through at your own pace. And then once a month we come together for a live Q&A so you can answer any of the questions that you have depending on where you are in the course. So if you are interested in learning more about fertility yoga and how to teach it, I'll leave the links below so that you can go and check that out. So if you have been following my fertility yoga for a while, you'll know that throughout the different stages of the cycle, we practice different yoga poses, different things are appropriate and suitable because of what's going on in the body, which can make it quite tricky when you're teaching a group class. So the easiest way to make sure that you're catering for everyone in the room is to really create your base plan as such around a really gentle restorative class. Many of the women who come to my in-person fertility yoga classes are really looking for that slowdown. A lot of these women haven't practiced yoga before, although some have, but they're women who've been struggling with infertility for often quite a long time, and they're looking for something else. They're looking for something to bring them down from that stress, especially if they're trying to conceive their first child. They're often women who are working, often a lot, and they have fast-paced, stressful lives. And they're looking for that slowdown. So this is why teaching a fertility class that really helps to bring that nervous system down and is really gentle and slow is really beneficial. Which is not to say that when you're trying to conceive, you can't do a really strong, free-flowing class at all, but it's just about doing it during the right stage of the cycle. So when you're catering for everyone in the room, I often keep my plan quite simple and restorative, and then depending on who's in front of me, I can amp certain poses up. I can get certain women to hold stronger poses for a little bit longer while I have other women in more restorative poses. Now, of course, you might be thinking, but how do you know where they are in their cycle? So this is something that I've really worked into the structure of my class and the way that I interact with the women who come to my fertility classes. And I want to know where you are in your cycle. And while you might feel like it's a bit of a personal question to be asking, I feel like in this space, it's okay. There's a reason that you're asking it, and it's done in a really loving and nurturing way. I want to know where you are in your cycle so that I can make sure that I cater for you in this class really well. So for instance, if I end up with 3 women who have their period right now and 1 who might be in pre-ovulation. So very different stages. Like the 3 women who are on their period are going to need lots of nurturing, lots of slow movement, lots of restorative meditation, really an inward practice. The person in pre-ovulation is in that spring energy. So they might be starting to feel like they want that strength, that flow, and to get a little bit of a sweat on. And I think you can still manage that, especially if you have these conversations up front. So when women are first coming into class, when you're having that pre-class conversation, asking them, where are you in your cycle? Okay, great, I'm going to be giving recommendations depending on where you are so that I can really cater for your energy levels and how you're feeling today. And you can also say, if you feel like taking the more advanced poses, like if you're feeling really good, you've got that energy and you're truly listening, of course, you're welcome to join in some of the more strenuous exercise. But if you're really feeling slow and lethargic today, then take those restorative options that I'll be giving. At the same time, those people in pre-ovulation, because remember, whilst there are certain poses that tend to naturally work better for those different stages of the cycle, it's not like during every pre-ovulation you feel energetic and you feel great. Like sometimes you still feel crap. Sometimes you feel lethargic for the whole cycle, especially if you're dealing with stress, if you're dealing with fertility treatments, if you've experienced loss, all of these things that come up when we're teaching fertility yoga. So I think it's really great to be able to say, all right, if you're feeling really energetic, if you're in that pre-ovulation phase, coming with us as we move through a few sun salutations to build some heat. If you're not feeling that today, feel free to stay in your child's pose or your puppy pose and we'll meet you there in a second. And so you can kind of intersperse these restorative poses with this more energetic movement as you move throughout your class. And that allows the students to really think about, okay, I'm in this stage of my cycle, but how am I actually feeling? And the longer they practice with you, the more they're going to start turning inwards, asking themselves, how are they feeling today? What's right for them today? And essentially, really, all this is yoga anyway. We're just asking it through a different lens, through a different frame of reference, in that we're looking at the phases of the menstrual cycle, asking them to look inside and think, is that how I'm feeling today? Does this align? And this is what I'm going to do, which you would hope in a regular class people are doing anyway. They're not just following you blindly and doing everything you say, that they were thinking, how am I actually feeling? Do I want to do this? But we know in group classes that's not what people do. We know in group classes they follow the teacher. They want to be doing the best they can. The ego gets involved and they want to do everything their teacher says. So I really find it works well in my fertility classes to really educate on the different stages of the cycle, typically what the energy levels are doing while we practice these certain things at certain times, and then asking the women in my classes to look inwards and think, is this right for me? And to choose from there. So it becomes a bit of a choose your own adventure class. This teaching about intuition and talking about intuition during your fertility yoga classes is also really beneficial, especially for women who are going through fertility treatments or perhaps they've had losses, because we can sometimes get to this point where we feel like we're handing over our power to the experts, where we feel like the doctor must know the answer to what's wrong with me, or the naturopath must know what's wrong, or the acupuncturist must know what's wrong. And we hand over that power instead of listening to our own intuition that says, maybe that treatment's a little bit too intense, maybe I don't need to go there just yet. Or maybe I feel like I could just keep going on my own for a few months, I don't need to rush into that. Because when we start going and seeing experts, the way that they present the information is always in, this is what is best for you. When actually what they're presenting is, this is my opinion about what is best for you. And I think when we can stay connected to that intuition and really practice in our yoga classes, sitting in the power of our own voice and making decisions that feel good in our body, because sometimes what we're presented doesn't feel good in our body and there's a reason for that. And if we can listen to that, and that's what we're teaching through the physical practice of fertility yoga, which obviously has great physical benefits, but it's also that ability to listen to the body and listen to our own intuition, which I think is so important, especially when you're on a fertility journey. And then the third thing I really want you to focus on when you're teaching your group fertility classes is connection. And as we've already talked about, that's connection with the self. It's also connection with you as a teacher, but it's also connection with the other women in the class. And the reason for this is infertility is really lonely. I mean, there are some women who'll have friends and relatives who are going through it as well, and it won't be quite so lonely for them. For the majority of us, especially if it's been going on for a long time, we sort of start to keep quiet about it and we don't share our experience because it feels like we're just going through Groundhog Day, day after day after day, and it doesn't feel like there's anything new to share. And you can get so down in the experience that you don't want to share about it anymore because it just feels like, I don't have anything new to say. So having a group of women who are going through this experience, coming together, sharing their experiences, often sharing their tips and their knowledge about certain doctors or certain types of treatments, it's just so powerful to have that connection to other women who are also experiencing the same issues, the same pain, the same hurt, and the same loneliness. And creating that culture of connection in your class is really important because for some women, that's the most beneficial part of coming to a fertility yoga class. It's not the yoga, it's not the connection to self, it's that connection to others. So the way that I try to foster this connection is after my fertility yoga classes, I do a bit of a women's circle. So we have time to share. Sometimes it's around a certain topic. So I might share an experience of mine and just open up the floor for anyone who wants to share. I don't make it compulsory because I know some women don't want to share on the first go or the second go, maybe ever. Some women just need to listen. They don't actually want to share their story. They just need to listen to that of others. But I usually find after we've had the yoga class, and because I do talk a lot about personal experience throughout the yoga class, and I'm talking about the different stages of the cycle, and I'm asking them to, I guess, think a little bit throughout the class, not just switch off and follow. They have to think about their own experience, tune into how am I feeling. I do find that after our meditation, they are usually quite open and relaxed and ready to share some of their story. Even if it's just a small part, I find this part of the class so valuable. And I know from my students, because they've told me that that part was really what got them through, especially for those women who came back week after week and had long journeys with fertility. Having that support, knowing you could connect with those women, they often connected outside of class as well, which is just beautiful. And that community that we created was just so powerful and so important to the women who came to those classes. So I hope that these 3 tips have helped. I know that when you're starting to learn about fertility yoga and you're thinking about group classes, it can feel like there's so much to do and there's so many modifications to make depending on the different different stages of the cycle. But I would say to start with, just plan that gentle class, focus on connecting to intuition and choosing poses that work for you in your body. So obviously you'll be telling that to your students, and on creating that connection within the class. And I think if you can do that, you'll be running a really beautiful fertility class that women will keep coming back to. If you have any other questions about teaching fertility yoga or fertility yoga in general, please leave them in the comments below. And like I said, if you would like more info on my fertility yoga teacher training, the links will be below. Thanks again for being here, and namaste.